I still remember the day I found the property, a neglected parcel of land perched on the edge of a cliff, overlooking the Atlantic. The realtor had warned me about the cost of building there, the permits, the structural challenges. Daniel had rolled his eyes. "Claire, this is absurd. We have a perfectly good home in the suburbs." But I couldn't explain the suffocation I felt in that house, with its manicured lawn and carefully coordinated furniture sets that Daniel insisted were investments. I needed something wild, something that breathed with the rhythm of the waves. I bought the land anyway, using money my grandmother had left me. Daniel called it my midlife crisis purchase, though I was only 36. "You'll tire of it," he said, his attention already drifting back to his phone, to whatever, or whoever, had been occupying more of his time lately. The first time I brought my architect, Eliza, to the site, we stood in silence for several minutes, just listening to the crash of waves against the rocks below. "This place will heal you," she finally said. I didn't ask how she knew I needed healing. Over the next 18 months, I watched my vision materialize. A modest but stunning 2-bedroom sanctuary with floor-to-ceiling windows that welcomed the horizon inside. I chose every element with painstaking care. Reclaimed teak floors that warmed under bare feet, slate countertops the color of storm clouds, light fixtures that cast a golden glow at sunset. Daniel visited only twice during construction, both times glancing at his watch repeatedly, asking when we'd be done with this little tour. The contractors began to know me by name. "Mrs. Parker's here," they'd call out, and I'd arrive with coffee for everyone, eager to see the day's progress. I learned about load-bearing walls and saltwater corrosion. I understood the science of building something that could withstand the elements, something I was failing to do in my marriage. When the house was finally finished, I spent 3 days there alone, moving furniture until each piece found its perfect place. I hung gauzy curtains that danced in the sea breeze and placed shells I'd collected along the windowsills. I stocked the kitchen with good wine glasses and the refrigerator with fresh food. I bought books I'd always wanted to read and arranged them on built-in shelves. "Aren't you coming home soon?" Daniel asked during our brief evening call, his voice distant, distracted. "This is home too," I replied, watching the sunset paint the water gold and crimson. He sighed, a familiar sound of dismissal. I began spending weekends there, then long stretches whenever Daniel traveled for work. I told myself it was because I loved the solitude, the sound of rain on the metal roof, the way morning light spilled across the bedroom floor. But honestly, the beach house was becoming my escape from the silent meals, the conversations that never went beyond logistics, the growing certainty that Daniel and I were becoming strangers who happened to share the same address. My friend Meredith visited once, bringing wine and sympathy. "This place is so you," she said, running her hand along the driftwood banister I'd installed myself. "Does Daniel appreciate what you've created?" I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. "Daniel thinks it's frivolous, an expensive hobby." "And what do you think it is?" she asked, her eyes serious. I looked out at the endless horizon, at the vastness that had begun to feel more like home than any place I'd ever lived. "Survival," I answered. As summer faded into fall, I noticed Daniel's increasing absences, the vague explanations, the way he'd grown protective of his phone. I found myself caring less than I expected. Instead, I planted lavender along the stone path leading to the beach house door and dreamed of spring blooms. I hung a hammock on the deck and imagined long afternoons reading there. I was building a life preserver without admitting I was drowning. The beach house had become my heart's true residence, the only place where I didn't feel like an imposter in my own life. What I didn't know then was how that sanctuary would become both the site of my deepest betrayal and the launchpad for my liberation. Meredith's text came on a Tuesday morning. "Call me when you're alone." Something in those 5 words made my stomach knot. I stepped away from my desk at the gallery where I curated local artists' work and found a quiet corner of the storage room. "I don't know how to say this," Meredith began, her voice tight. "I was having lunch at Miller's Point yesterday, and I saw them." "Saw who?" I asked, though some part of me already knew. "Daniel, with someone. They were at the Marina restaurant, the one near your beach house." Her voice softened. "Claire, they weren't just having lunch. The way he touched her. I'm so sorry." I felt strangely calm. Did you take a picture? What? No, Take one next time, I said, surprising myself with the coldness in my voice. I need to know. 3 days later, the evidence arrived. Meredith had driven back to the coast, pretending to be house hunting. The photo showed Daniel helping a woman onto a small sailboat, his hand intimately placed at the small of her back, his smile unguarded in a way I hadn't seen in years. She was younger, with sun-streaked hair gathered in a loose braid. In the background, unmistakable, was the distinctive blue railing of my deck. My deck. My house. I sat at my kitchen counter, our kitchen, in our primary home, staring at the image until my eyes burned. Then I zoomed in on the woman's face. She was laughing, head tilted back, completely at ease. I didn't recognize her, but she wore my husband's familiarity like a favorite sweater. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. Our marriage had been hollowing out for years, each of us retreating to separate corners of emotional distance. No, what cut deepest was the location. Daniel had barely tolerated my beach house, calling it my expensive therapy whenever the subject arose. Now he was using it as a romantic getaway with another woman. I opened our shared calendar app. Daniel had blocked the upcoming weekend as fishing trip with clients, a transparent lie he hadn't bothered to make convincing. He hadn't even asked if I'd be using the house. That night, he came home late, smelling of expensive scotch and restaurant cologne. He kissed my cheek absently and asked about dinner. I watched him move through our kitchen, this stranger I'd married 13 years ago, and felt nothing but a dull, throbbing anger. Any plans this weekend? He asked casually, opening the refrigerator. Working at the gallery, I lied. You? That client fishing thing I mentioned. Potential investors for the Madison project. He didn't meet my eyes. Probably won't have cell service. Don't worry if you don't hear from me. How thoughtful of you to let me know, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Later, I lay awake beside him, listening to his even breathing, wondering how long this had been happening. Had there been others? Was this the first time he'd taken her to my sanctuary? Or had they been desecrating my space for months? I thought about the bedroom there, the linen sheets I'd splurged on, the reading lamps positioned just so, the small vase I kept filled with whatever wildflowers were in season. By morning, my shock had crystallized into something harder, colder. I called in sick to the gallery and drove to a coffee shop across town, where I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. There, I called Helena Vasquez, my college roommate, who'd gone on to become one of the city's most formidable divorce attorneys. Claire, she said warmly when she picked up, it's been too long. I need legal advice, I said, my voice cracking for the first time. And I need a friend. We met at her office that afternoon. I brought the photo, the deed to the beach house showing I'd purchased it with my inheritance, bank statements, everything I could think might be relevant. Helena listened without interruption as I laid out the facts of my marriage, the beach house, and Daniel's betrayal. When I finished, she reached across her desk and squeezed my hand. What do you want, Claire? Not what you think you should want, or what would hurt him most. What do you actually want? I considered her question, feeling the weight of it. I want him to understand what he's thrown away. I want him to feel what I'm feeling right now, like everything he believed in was a lie. And then, I took a deep breath. I want to start over. Without him. Helena nodded, her expression shifting from friend to attorney. Then let's make that happen. She pulled out a legal pad. Tell me everything about that beach house. Every receipt, every decision, every time he dismissed it or you. We're going to need it all. Helena's office became my war room over the next 3 days. I brought in every document related to the beach house, the original deed, construction contracts, utility bills in my name only, bank statements showing payments from my personal account. I even had emails where Daniel had referred to it as your project and your beach obsession. This is cleaner than most cases I see, Helena said, organizing the papers into meticulous piles. You used inherited money, kept separate accounts, and he's demonstrated clear disinterest in the property until recently. She looked up at me, her dark eyes sharp. But Claire, are you sure you don't want to confront him directly? Some people need that closure. I shook my head. He'd just lie, minimize, make me doubt myself. I twisted my wedding ring, which suddenly felt like a foreign object. I want him to be caught. Completely, undeniably caught. That afternoon, I met with a locksmith who specialized in remote properties. Changing the code is simple, he explained as we stood on the porch of my beach house. I can also add a silent alert system that notifies you when anyone enters. Do it, I said, feeling a strange sense of reclaiming territory. While the locksmith worked, I walked through each room, seeing it through new eyes. Had they slept in my bed? Cooked in my kitchen? Showered together in the bathroom I'd designed with such care? I opened closets and drawers, looking for evidence of her presence, but found nothing. Daniel was too careful for that. Or perhaps this had been their first planned weekend getaway, and I'd caught them just in time. I removed a few things I couldn't bear to leave. The quilt my mother had made before she died, my collection of sea glass, the expensive coffee maker I'd treated myself to. Everything else could stay. Everything else was now just furniture, just objects. On my way out, I noticed a bottle of wine in the rack, a Bordeaux Daniel and I had bought on our 10th anniversary trip to France. He must have been saving it for his romantic weekend. I took it with me. Back home, I packed a small suitcase with essentials and moved into a hotel downtown. I told Daniel I needed space to think about a major gallery installation. He seemed almost relieved, which only confirmed what I already knew. Our marriage wasn't just broken, it was already gone. Thursday evening, Helena called. Everything's ready. The property exclusion order, the divorce filing, it's all prepared. But Claire, once we do this, there's no turning back. Are you absolutely sure? For a moment I hesitated. 13 years of marriage, of building a life with someone, of believing in a future together. Could I really end it like this? Then I remembered the photo. Daniel's hand on that woman's back. Both of them laughing, standing on the deck I'd designed to watch sunsets from. My certainty returned, hardened like beach glass tumbled by waves. I'm sure, I said. What's the plan? I'll be at the beach house Saturday afternoon. You gave me the new entry code. When they arrive, I'll serve him with the papers and the exclusion order. You don't need to be there. No, I said quickly. I want to be there. Not to confront him, I don't want to say a word to him. But I need to see his face when he realizes what's happening. Helena was silent for a moment. That's unusual, but it's your right. Just stay inside. Let me handle the legal part. Friday crawled by in a fog of anticipation and dread. I kept expecting to feel grief, to break down in tears over the death of my marriage. Instead, I felt something unexpected, a growing sense of liberation, of standing at the edge of something new. I drank the anniversary Bordeaux alone in my hotel room, not as an act of spite, but as a toast to my future self. Saturday morning, I drove to the coast early, parking my car behind the neighboring property where it wouldn't be visible from the road. Helena arrived at 2 o'clock, professional in a tailored suit despite the beach setting, carrying a leather portfolio that contained the dissolution of my marriage. He'll probably arrive around sunset, I told her, checking the security app on my phone that would alert us to any car turning into the driveway. That's when the light on the water is best. Helena nodded, her expression softening. You don't have to be strong through all of this, you know. It's okay to fall apart a little. I smiled, surprising myself. That's just it. I don't feel like falling apart. I feel like I'm finally standing up straight after years of making myself small. We waited in silence as the afternoon light began to shift, casting long shadows across the deck. At 5:38 p.m., my phone buzzed with an alert. Motion detected at the entrance gate. Helena straightened her jacket and moved to the porch. I positioned myself just inside the front window, where I could see everything but remain unseen. Daniel's black SUV appeared around the bend in the driveway, gravel crunching under its tires. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hands were steady. This wasn't the end of something. This was the beginning of everything that came after. Daniel stepped out of the SUV with the confidence of a man who believed he owned the world. He wore the linen shirt I'd bought him last summer in Nantucket, a detail that sent a fresh wave of anger through me. She emerged from the passenger side, smoothing her floral sundress, looking exactly like the kind of woman Daniel would choose. Pretty in an effortless way, young enough to be impressed by him. They moved around to the trunk, retrieving overnight bags and what looked like an expensive bottle of champagne. From my hiding place behind the curtains, I watched him punch in the old security code. The keypad flashed red. Frowning, he tried again. Another rejection. His shoulders tensed as he dug out his phone, presumably to call me with some fabricated emergency about needing access to our beach house. That's when Helena stepped into view from the side of the porch where she'd been waiting. "Mr. Parker," she called, her voice carrying on the sea breeze. "I'm Helena Vasquez, attorney at law. I represent Claire Parker." Daniel froze, his phone halfway to his ear. The woman beside him took a small step backward, her hand rising to her throat. I could almost see Daniel's mind racing, calculating, formulating explanations. "There must be some mistake," he said, forcing a laugh. "This is my property, my wife and I. This property belongs solely to Claire Parker," Helena interrupted, her tone professionally neutral as she descended the steps. "It was purchased with her inheritance and maintained with her separate funds. I have documentation proving this." The woman glanced at Daniel, confusion clouding her face. "You said this was your vacation home," she said, her voice just loud enough for me to hear through the open window. Daniel ignored her, his attention locked on Helena. "I don't know what kind of game Claire is playing, but—" "No games, Mr. Parker." Helena extended the envelope. "This contains a temporary property exclusion order, preventing you from entering these premises without explicit written permission from the owner. It also contains initial divorce papers, which you'll need to respond to within 30 days. The color drained from Daniel's face. His eyes darted to the house, scanning the windows, finally landing near where I stood. Could he see me? Did it matter? I didn't move, didn't give him the satisfaction of my voice or my tears. The silence between us spoke volumes that 13 years of marriage never had. "You can't be serious," he finally said, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet tone I knew too well, the one he used when he was losing control but trying to maintain his image. "Where is she? Claire?" He stepped toward the house, but Helena smoothly moved to block his path. "Mr. Parker, I strongly advise you not to violate the order that has just been served to you. Sheriff Morris is parked just down the road, awaiting my call if needed." His companion, this stranger who had become entangled in our unraveling, tugged at his arm. "Daniel, let's just go," she whispered urgently. "This is humiliating." He shook her off, his eyes still searching the house. "Claire," he called again, louder this time. "You're going to regret this. Do you hear me? This is childish and beneath you." I watched him, this man I'd once vowed to love forever, and felt an unexpected calm. He looked smaller somehow, less imposing than the man who had occupied so much space in my life for so long. His anger didn't frighten me anymore. His disapproval meant nothing. Helena remained unruffled. "You have been legally served, Mr. Parker. I suggest you leave the premises immediately. Any personal items you may have here can be retrieved through proper legal channels." "Personal items?" he scoffed. "Half of what's in there is mine. That will be determined in the divorce proceedings," Helena replied. "For now, you need to leave." The woman had already started walking back to the car, her posture rigid with embarrassment. She opened the passenger door and slipped inside without looking back. Daniel remained rooted in place, his hands clenched at his sides, pride warring with pragmatism. "Tell Claire this isn't over," he finally said, jabbing a finger toward Helena. "Tell her we could have handled this like adults instead of whatever this theatrical production is supposed to be." Helena's expression didn't change. "I'll convey your message. Good evening, Mr. Parker." I watched him storm back to the SUV, slam the door, and reverse down the driveway with enough speed to send gravel flying. Only when the taillights disappeared did I step away from the window, my legs suddenly unsteady. Helena came inside, setting her portfolio on the coffee table. "You okay?" she asked, studying my face. I nodded, surprised to find it was true. "I am." I moved to the sliding glass doors that opened onto the deck and pushed them wide, letting the ocean air rush in. "I really am." Helena stayed for dinner. We ordered pizza and drank wine on the deck, watching darkness settle over the water. For the first time since I'd built this place, I felt its full potential as a sanctuary. Not an escape from my life, but the foundation for a new one. "He'll call," Helena warned, as she gathered her things to leave. "Probably tonight." Men like Daniel don't process rejection well. She was right. The first call came 20 minutes after she drove away. I watched my phone vibrate across the coffee table, Daniel's name flashing like a warning. I let it go to voicemail. Then came texts, each one escalating in urgency and emotion. "We need to talk. Answer your phone, Claire. You're being ridiculous. This isn't how adults handle problems. Who is she? Some feminist lawyer friend filling your head with nonsense?" I turned off notification sounds and set my phone face down. Tomorrow I would deal with it all. The practical mechanics of dismantling a marriage, the inevitable questions from friends, the division of the life we'd built. But tonight belonged to me alone. I slept deeply in my beach house bed, lulled by waves crashing against the shore. When I woke and checked my phone, there were 7 missed calls and a voicemail that I steeled myself to listen to. "Claire." His voice was rough, either from emotion or alcohol. "I don't know what you think you saw or heard, but it's not." A pause. A sigh. "Look, Ashley is just a colleague. We were discussing the riverfront project, and I thought the beach house would be a good place to work without distractions." Another pause. Longer this time. "I should have told you. I know. But this whole divorce thing? Having me served papers in front of her? That's extreme. Even for you. Even for you." The familiar dismissal. The suggestion that I was overreacting. Too emotional. Too much. It had worked before, making me doubt myself, question my perceptions. Not this time. I texted Helena. "He's claiming she's a colleague. Nothing more." Her response was immediate. Classic. "Want me to send the other photos Meredith took? The ones of them kissing at the Marina restaurant last week?" I hadn't known about those. Something cold and clarifying settled in my chest. Not yet. Let's see what story he sticks with. My phone rang again while I was making coffee. Not Daniel this time, but Meredith. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice tight with concern. "Daniel's been calling Jason, trying to get him to talk sense into you. He sounds desperate." Jason was Meredith's husband and Daniel's racquetball partner. The fact that Daniel was already trying to rally allies didn't surprise me. What did Jason tell him? That he doesn't get involved in other people's marriages. Meredith's laugh was short and sharp. Which is rich coming from Daniel, don't you think? By midday, word had spread through our social circle. My phone buzzed with messages from friends expressing confusion, concern, offers of support. Daniel had apparently told everyone I'd had some kind of breakdown, that I was making wild accusations and refusing to communicate. Eliza, my architect, texted, "Just heard from Daniel. He's worried about you. Said you've locked yourself in the beach house and won't talk to anyone. Need me to bring wine and a reality check for him?" I smiled at her loyalty. "I'm fine. Better than fine. But yes to the wine next time you're in town." Around 4 o'clock, I finally answered one of Daniel's calls. I kept my voice level, unemotional. "Claire, thank God." Relief flooded his voice. "We need to talk about this in person. Whatever you think is happening." "I know exactly what's happening, Daniel." My interruption seemed to startle him into silence. "I know about Ashley. I know about the dinners at Miller's Point. I know you've been taking her sailing on the Hendersons' boat. Those were business meetings. Charlie Henderson is an investor in—" "Stop." My voice didn't rise, but he fell silent anyway. "I have the photos, Daniel. Multiple photos, multiple days. You and Ashley aren't exactly discreet." The silence stretched so long I thought he might have hung up. Finally, his voice returned, lower now, his tone shifting from defensive to negotiating. "I made a mistake. A stupid, meaningless mistake. But throwing away 13 years of marriage over one indiscretion is exactly what I'm doing." I finished for him. "And it's not just about Ashley. It's about years of you dismissing me, minimizing me, making me feel like my desires and dreams were childish inconveniences. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true." I took a deep breath. "Helena will handle all communication from now on. Don't call me again." I ended the call before he could respond, before he could deploy any of the tactics that had worked so well in the past. The soft voice, the reasonable tone, the subtle suggestions that I was being irrational or overly sensitive. That evening, as I walked along the shore collecting shells, my phone buzzed with an email alert. Daniel had responded to the divorce filing with his own attorney, a shark from a prestigious firm downtown. The battle lines were drawn, but for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the fight. The divorce took 9 months, longer than Helena had initially predicted. Daniel fought every step, not because he wanted to salvage our marriage, but because he couldn't stand losing. His attorney, a silver-haired man named Richard Klein, deployed every delay tactic in the book. They challenged the property exclusion, demanded detailed financial records going back a decade, even tried to claim Daniel had contributed sweat equity to the beach house by consulting on design decisions. That last claim made Helena laugh out loud during a deposition when I produced emails where Daniel had written, "Just do whatever you want with the place, Claire. I really couldn't care less about light fixtures or whatever." Through it all, I kept working at the gallery, took long walks on the beach, and slowly rebuilt the parts of myself that had withered in the shadow of my marriage. I reconnected with old friends who had drifted away during my years with Daniel, people he had subtly dismissed as not our kind of people. I started painting again, something I'd abandoned shortly after our wedding when Daniel commented that the smell of oils gave him a headache. 3 months into the divorce proceedings, I met Ashley by chance at a cafe downtown. I had just ordered when I turned and found myself face to face with her. She looked smaller than she had that day at the beach house. Her confidence diminished without Daniel beside her. "Claire," she said, her voice barely audible over the espresso machine. I'm so sorry." I studied her face. Young, pretty, uncertain. "Are you still seeing him?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I ended it the day at the beach house. He told me he was separated, that you two were just finalizing the details." Her eyes filled with tears. "I would never have—" "It's okay," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. "He lied to both of us. We didn't become friends, but that brief conversation loosened something tight in my chest. Ashley wasn't the villain in my story. She was just another woman who had believed Daniel's carefully constructed narrative. Spring came, painting the coastal landscape with wildflowers and fresh green growth. The legal battles continued, but their power to distress me diminished with each passing week. Daniel had moved into a sleek downtown condo that, according to mutual friends, looked like a furniture showroom, all sharp angles and status pieces. I heard he'd started dating a real estate agent who specialized in luxury properties. I found I didn't care. Helena called on a warm April morning. "They've accepted our final offer," she said without preamble. "The beach house stays yours. No contests. The primary residence will be sold, and proceeds split according to our proposed ratio. Retirement accounts divided as outlined. They've dropped all other claims." I sat down on the deck steps, watching a pair of seagulls argue over something in the sand. "It's over? Just the paperwork left," Helena confirmed. "You won, Claire." But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like waking up from a long, confusing dream to find reality waiting patiently for my return. That evening, I walked the entire length of the beach, from my property line to the rocky outcropping a mile south. The tide was going out, revealing tide pools teeming with tiny, perfect ecosystems. I thought about adaptation, about how life finds ways to thrive in the harshest environments. I thought about the version of myself who had begun building this house, hopeful, desperate, already grieving a marriage that was slipping away. I hardly recognized her now. A realtor's sign appeared on my lawn the following week. Not because I needed to sell, financially I was secure, but because I needed to move forward. The beach house had served its purpose. It had been my refuge, my strength, the physical manifestation of my independence. But now it was also haunted by memories of betrayal and confrontation. It was time for someone else to fill it with new stories. I received 3 offers within days. I accepted the second. A young architect and her wife who fell in love with the clean lines and natural light, who saw the potential for joy in every corner. They didn't haggle over the price or demand concessions. They simply said, "This place is perfect," and meant it. On my last morning at the beach house, I woke before dawn and carried my coffee to the shore. The horizon was just beginning to blush with light, the water still dark and mysterious. I dug my toes into the cool sand and watched the world transform from monochrome to vivid color as the sun crested the water. My phone buzzed with a text from Eliza. "Still on for lunch? Want to show you those commercial space plans?" I smiled. 6 weeks earlier, over too many glasses of wine, I had confessed my longtime dream of opening my own gallery, something small and selective, featuring local artists whose work spoke to me. Eliza had immediately begun sketching layout ideas on a napkin. Now we had meetings with contractors and loan officers, permit applications and business plans. The beach house had taught me how to build something from nothing but vision and determination. The gallery would be my next creation. Not an escape this time, but a destination. As I turned to head back to the house, I noticed something glinting in the sand. A perfect piece of sea glass, worn smooth by years of waves. I picked it up, feeling its cool weight in my palm. Green, translucent, flawless. I slipped it into my pocket, a small talisman to carry forward. The new owners would arrive at noon. I would hand over the keys, wish them happiness, and drive away without looking back. Not because I was running from painful memories, but because I was walking confidently toward something new, a life redesigned entirely on my own terms.